We are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, opposed to secret oaths, opposed to secret proceedings, secret proceedings. No official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Welcome to Conspiracy Corner Podcast, everyone. This is Abe, your host. Just got home at 6 a.m. Today is, I believe, let's see, what is today? 24th of April. It was pretty chill, pretty slow night at work, so I got off a little early. Honestly, Sammy's not off on any of the same days, so I might go in and pick up an extra shift. Besides that, not much difference in life, as far as updates. I was listening to Marfugal News earlier today while at work. Apparently, Russia and Ukraine are getting into it, like, not so much chest pump. Shots been fired, apparently, is what he was saying. Russia pulled the whole, we'll back off, but we'll leave our equipment, out there, and then, started blasting. So, fun. Looks like World War III is around the corner. Cracks me up. Everybody was so excited to get 2020 over with, and 2021 is just looking more and more bleak. I mean, we got a geriatric as president. Impending World War III. COVID pass. Yeah, so not looking good. Kind of bleak. Kind of depressing. But today we are going to be covering Betty and Barney Hill, which is like probably one of the most famous UFO accounts. Honestly, it's probably the UFO account to kind of set off modern UFO accounts. It's not the oldest, but it was like kind of what set off the whole gray alien UFO accounts. And I believe it was like in the 60s, early 60s. It was during, honestly, a time in America when there was definitely some racial issues. Betty and Barney Hill were one of the rare interracial couples. But yeah, it's an abduction account of them they're going on a trip, I believe, to Canada. Just them two and their dog, and they get abducted by some gray aliens, and it was like a fireball type craft that it looked like from afar. It was a physical craft, which is funny because it's actually the same craft that I had seen during my UFO experience. I had two UFO experiences, and it was the orange fireball or red fireball, which is, at the time, like, I didn't know. I'd always thought like most UFO experiences were always saucers or something, and after I had my UFO experiences with my ex-wife, I got deep into studying it, like, what was it? I felt like, okay, if I believe there's a God, God showed me this for a reason, so I should probably dig into it, and learn about it, because I think a lot of people, some people, I don't know, some people see UFOs and they just don't even care. And like, to me, like, it just made me more interested in it, made me want to learn about it, which was funny because I did a complete 180. Like, before I had gotten into the whole UFO and conspiracies and stuff, I thought the whole UFO and alien thing was just stupid. I literally thought it was like the stupidest thing ever. Like, when people would try to talk to me about aliens or UFOs, I literally was like, you're retarded. Like, but yeah, I did a complete 180 once I seen. And I remember, like, we were living with my brother, and I just remember coming home and like freaking the fuck out, like, oh my god, you're never gonna believe it. Me and Dina, like, we stopped and pulled over, and we were chased by a UFO, and it ended up beaming something up, and then we stopped and pulled over and looked at it, and then 4 more UFOs came, and it was just mind blowing. And he was just kind of like, yeah, I mean, people see UFOs all the time. That shit's real. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. It's real. So, but yeah, we're going to be covering Betty and Barney Hill. We're going to be, basically, they had the experience. They actually didn't really remember much. They just knew that something weird, something bad had happened. And they started having relationship issues and mental health issues and stuff. So they went to a doctor to do hypnotic regression. So, I mean, if you're skeptical of that, you probably won't enjoy this episode. I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on it. But if you actually read their book, The Interrupted Journey, I have it. I was lucky enough to get a copy of it from a local book dealer. His name is what the fuck, man? I know his name, and now I forget it. I've shouted him out multiple times on this channel, and now I've forgotten his name, and it's on the tip of my tongue. He has a radio talk show. It's an AM radio show here. It's like right there, dude. But yeah, I've gotten literally all my conspiracy, occults, paranormal. I've gotten almost all my books off of him. He had like an amazing selection. And he had Interrupted Journey, and I got it. I got one of Whitley Strieber's books, not Communion, but the one after that. I think it's called like Transformation or something. I got Ignatius Donnelly, a book on Atlantis. That's an amazing book. Yeah, I got a shit ton of books off of him about these types of subjects, But yeah, what I was saying though is, if you're skeptical of the regression, which I'm kind of 50-50 on it, because I know that a lot. I mean, they were all audio recorded. I'm sure you could find the audio recordings. I mean, they could have been altered. I'm not sure. But when you read the book, they actually have a lot of physical evidence, like scuff marks on his shoes, some weird radioactivity that happens with the trunk of their car, to where you'd put a compass on it and it would spin like crazy. And it actually, like, I'll try to leave some photos. It left like some like prints and stuff, like real weird stuff, like actual physical evidence. I believe it personally. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Betty kind of turned into a kook after Barney died, but I mean, that doesn't disprove it, Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction. But yeah, we're going to actually read the literal transcripts of while they were under hypnosis. So I hope you enjoy. Samson, that was his name. I remembered it while I was taking a break. Samson, he's on Main Street in Harrodsburg. But if you're looking for paranormal and occult and conspiracy stuff, good luck, because I bought most all of it off the shelves, and he honestly doesn't get that much stuff in on the subject. So, but here we go. Here's the first transcript. If we have time, we'll do more, because there's they went back for multiple appointments. But doctor, her eyes close, her head nods. You are in a deep, deep sleep, deep asleep, fully relaxed and far asleep, very comfortable, fully relaxed, deep asleep, far asleep, deep, deep sleep. With the repeated reinforcement of the induction she has experienced over the weeks, this was all that was required to put her into the trance state. Now we're going back to your vacation in September of 1961. As you were coming from Niagara Falls to Montreal, you will remember what you did, and you will recall everything, all of your experiences, all of your memories, all of your feelings, and you will give me all of this in full detail. Now you're coming from Niagara Falls to Montreal. You're on your way home from vacation. Now tell me all that you experienced, all that you felt, you and your husband. Betty. Her voice is less monotonous compared to Barney's flat and vacant tone, but she is in a deep trance, as he was. We're driving along, and the streets were wide. Sun was shining. There were quite a few people in the streets, and I was looking at the houses and stores and windows. She speaks, however, with long pauses, as if she waits for the scene to pass by her eyes before she relates it. We stopped at a gas station to get directions, and the attendant spoke French and couldn't understand us. So we went to another garage, and they told us how to get back into the center of Montreal. And I saw a mink coat in the window for $895. Then we decided we'd find a hotel. But then, we didn't know if they'd allow Delcy to be in the hotel. Delcy's their Dotson. I'll leave a picture. She's cute. So then we thought we'd look for a motel somewhere outside of Montreal. And we passed a place with a sign, I thought, said, potato fritters. And the woman in this little drive-in restaurant came out and started speaking in French. And I said I didn't understand French. And she kept saying she was sure I was French, but I'm not. And then I found out it wasn't potato fritters, it was potato chips. So we had the potato chips and coffee, and I can't remember if I had a hot dog or a hamburger or one of each. Again, the struggle to remember was minute, even if not significant. If she were instructed to, she could remember. Also, different details of the trip are selected for description by Betty than Barney chose to relate. She continues with her description of the basic story of the trip down through Canada to Colebrook and then on to Lancaster. Her story paralleling Barney's account of this portion of the journey. And we kept driving and looking around. The moon was bright, but not quite full, but very bright and large. And there was a star down below the moon, and the lower left-hand side of the moon. And then right after we left Lancaster, I noticed that there was like a star, a bigger star, up over this one, and it hadn't been there. And I showed Barney, and we kept watching it. It seemed to keep getting brighter and brighter and bigger looking. And we watched it for a while, and I was puzzled by it, also curious. And while I was watching it, Delcy was getting somewhat restless. And then we went by a mountain that obstructed the view. And when I got to where I could see the star again, I thought it had moved. Again, Betty Hill rarely begins her sentences in ordinary conversation with and yet like Barney, she persistently does so in trance. But I wasn't quite sure, so I kept watching it, and it seemed so it did move, and Delsey was restless. So I told Barney we should let Delsey out, and it would give us a chance to look at this star through the binoculars. We drive along, and we came to a parking space off the highway, one that had been built there, and I guess it was so people could drive off and look at the view. But there were woods all around, and there were a couple of trash barrels, and Barney said we should look out for bears. I got out of the car and put, I got out of the car and put Delsey on her leash and started to walk her. And I noticed that the star was definitely moving. So I went back to the car and got the binoculars, and Barney took Delsey. And I was looking through the binoculars at the object, and Barney was saying it was a satellite, but it wasn't. It was moving fast, but it went in front of the moon, and I saw it. I saw it travel across the whole face of the moon, and it was odd-shaped, and it was flashing all different colored lights. Doctor: How far away would you say it was? Betty: It looked at the time it wasn't close to us, but I could see it outlined in front of the moon, and there were like searchlights rotating around it. Doctor: Like those lights you see on police cars? Betty: No, you know what a searchlight looks like. Doctor says yes. Betty says, and how it's sort of in a pencil line of light and it swings around. They were like that. Doctor says, you could see those long beams? Betty says, of white, and they were different colors. Doctor says, were they usual colors that you know, or were they... Betty interrupts, yes, they were bright colors, like a bright orange light, almost a reddish beam, and there was like a blue, well, you said like a light of a police cruiser, you know. It was something like that, because when the cruiser turns, light turns around somehow, and it flashes, even though they seem to come out into the ray thing somehow, all these different lights, kinds of lights, seem to be the same flash, flash, flash. There were colors other than red, amber, and green. The doctor, of course, is referring to conventional lights used in this country, or planes and vehicles, and for traffic control. Betty responds, like a blue and like a flash, 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 flash. And I had never seen anything like it before, and it was moving quite fast. But I've never seen a satellite. But I've always thought a satellite is traveling almost like a shooting star. Maybe not quite as fast, but this was traveling that fast. Well, when I saw it go out in front of the moon, I was sort of fascinated, and I kept watching. But then I tried to get Barney to look. I wanted him to see it before it got away from the face of the moon, but he kept saying, oh, it's a satellite. Doctor: Are you referring to Telstar or Echo, that sort of thing? Yes, and Barney said it was just a satellite, and he was over by the car, and by the time he got back, it had gone from in front of the moon, but he did look at it. And then he looked at it for a few seconds and gave the binoculars back to me. Doctor: You said it had an odd shape, did you? Yes, responds Betty. Doctor says, how would you describe this shape? Round? Shaped like, a plane? No, not like a plane. All I could think of, like a cigar. Okay, so I did misremember. It was a cigar-shaped UFO. Like a cigar? Yes. It was long, and there weren't any wings, and it was going sideways, like a cigar. It was going from left to right. It was just like holding a cigar up in front of the moon with all these lights flashing around it. So then Barney looked at it, and I took the binoculars and looked again and gave them back to him. And then I went over to put Delsey in the car and got in the car myself and shut the door. And then Barney came over and got in the car and he said, "They've seen us and they're coming this way." And I laughed and asked him if he had watched Twilight Zone recently on TV. God, I love that show. And he didn't say anything. Doctor: "Why do you mention Twilight Zone?" Betty: "Because the idea was fantastic." Doctor: "Had there been anything like this on Twilight Zone?" Betty responds, "I don't know. I never see Twilight Zone, but I heard people talk about this program, and I was always under the impression that it was a way out type of thing. And so when he had said that they had seen us and that they were swinging around and coming in our direction, I thought his imagination was being overactive." Did he have binoculars at the time? Betty responds, "I left him standing on the edge of the parking area, looking at this thing when I took Delcy, and she and I got in the car, and I sat down and waited for him to finish looking. And this is when he came back and said it had turned around and was coming towards us." Doctor says, "Did you look to see if it was doing that?" Betty responds, "Not at that moment. I thought this was I didn't know. Well, Barney kept saying that it was headed towards us, so I thought, well, I don't know what gave him this idea, but I was beginning to get a little curious why he felt this. So I picked up the binoculars, and at first I couldn't find it. Couldn't find the object. But then I did see it, and I could see that it was getting closer to us, and was coming in, and it was still far away. And even when it was coming in, it still looked like a star. It was a solid light type of thing. And then, when I would take the binoculars down and look at it, it was just like a star coming in closer." An echo of many more reports from NICAP in Air Force files. But then when I looked at it through the binoculars, it would, of course, appear to be much bigger, but it was flying in a very odd way. And this is what I was all excited about. What do you mean by odd way? Well, you know how an airplane flies along in a straight line. It wasn't flying like that. It was turning. It was rotating. And it would go along in a straight line for just a short distance, and then would tip over on its side and go up. Well, let's see. It was shaped like a cigar, you say? Yes. Did it fly like a cigar, going along like an arrow? This is the way it looked. When it tipped over, what did it do? How did it tip? Betty responds, "Well, all right. You take a cigar and you lay it flat on a desk. Now you stand the cigar up on one end, right straight up and down. This is what this did. And in the meanwhile, it gave the appearance of spinning all the time. Other reports of this nature indicate that the cigar shape, as in Barney's case, is an indication of a disc that is seen in profile." Was it turning on the long axis? The doctor says. Yes, it would go along straight, and then it would suddenly go right up straight, and then it would flatten horizontally, and then it would drop down straight. This seemed to be the overall pattern. It wasn't done in an exactly precise way. It would jerk out. It would flatten out. So it was it wasn't smoothly done. And as they got closer, they seemed to be more of this jumping back and forth into the sky. And then it followed us for a long time, and Barney was driving. And I was watching this almost completely, all the way, and the way it was flying. I thought maybe it was the vibrations of the car that was causing it to look this way. Doctor: "You mean this jumping effect?" Yes, I thought maybe the vibrations of the car was giving the effect. And so I was keep asking Barney to stop the car and look at it. And he would stop and he'd say, "I can't see anything flying this way," while I could. And so then I would look at other objects, like a star, to see if it would give this appearance. And it wouldn't. I kept trying to figure it out. I kept saying, nothing flies like this. So it's something I'm doing to make this idea that it's flying like this. Everything else I looked at was all right. It didn't jump around. It was just this one object. We kept starting and stopping and looking at it, and we would drive along. When we got to Cannon Mountain, this is where the tramway is. Doctor, he needs to make an adjustment of the tape recorder. All right, we'll stop there now. You will not hear anything further until I speak to you again. You will be perfectly at ease. Alright, so he did stop the tape recorder at that point. I think there is healthy skepticism that maybe he could have been implanting memories, but there is still physical evidence, which I spoke about earlier, so I don't know. You decide. I personally, after reading this book, which I would, definitely suggest it, I personally believe it's true. Let's get back into it. All right, Betty, continue now where you left off. We came by the tramway at Cannon Mountain, and there's a lighted area on the top. I think the lights might have been from a restaurant, and as I was watching it, the lights went out. I don't know if it went down in the valley between the mountains, or if it turned its lights off, and this puzzled me, because I kept looking for it, and then I thought, well, maybe they're going away. They aren't for it, or they aren't interested in us. But then we came out by Old Man of the Mountain, and there it was. But it looked almost as if it was dancing along the top of the mountain, the ridge. And it would go down a little bit on the other side, and I would lose sight of it. And I kept wondering why they were following us. And I would figure that. I was wondering if they were curious about me as I was about them. You speak of they, says the doctor. I mean, well, I figured there must have been somebody inside of the object, someone directing its flight. And so, whoever was inside, this is they. I was very curious, and I had the feeling that someone might be there, and they saw us, in a way. It was all very intriguing. And I didn't know what was going to happen, but I was not afraid. I was just curious. And I just had a feeling that something is going to happen, and I don't know what it is. And I hope I won't be too afraid when it does happen. And so we kept riding along, and we stopped at one place. There were too many trees, we lost sight of it there. When we got to the flume, Barney drove in on the parking area on the right-hand side, and we stopped there and tried to really get a good look at it again. But there were too many trees there too. But we would go along, and there would be areas where we could get out. It would be fairly clear, and then we went past the flume. Somewhere between the flume and Indian Head, or it was just beyond the flume, or just beyond Indian Head, there was a motel. It was like cabins, these small, neat-looking cabins. And the sign itself wasn't lighted, but there was one cottage on the end that had a light on, and there was a man standing in the door. And I saw this, and I thought, if I want to, I can get out of this whole situation right now. All we have to do is drive in here, and this object will go away. And that will be the end of it. I mean, this is our escape from it, if I want this. And I was thinking this, and I didn't say anything to Barney. I didn't say anything. All I could think was, I don't know where we are going, but I'm ready for it. And Barney was sort of irritating me because he wanted to. His whole attitude was that I was trying to wish something on him. I got the impression that he was trying to deny what was actually happening, that he didn't want to know that it was there. Even though he would stop and look at it, he didn't have any realization of what was going on. Now it was fairly close, and I could see that it was spinning because I could see that the lights were on one side, and this gave it a blinking and twinkling effect. But then all of a sudden it stopped doing this, and I got the idea that the lights were only on one side, and then all of a sudden the object shot ahead of us and swung around in front of the car. Well, I was watching it, and when it did this, and it was on my side of the windshield, directly in front of me, and I looked at it through the binoculars, and I could see double row windows, and then, as I was watching it, I was thinking this side has the windows, and the back of it must be dark, and this is why it twinkles. But while I'm sitting there, I'm amazed by all of this. Then all of a sudden, on one side, on the left-hand side, a red light came out. And then on the right-hand side, a light came out. You say left and right-hand side? I was facing the object. You were looking through the windshield? I was looking through the windshield, right up at it. How far away would you say it was? Oh, I couldn't estimate. You couldn't see it too clearly without binoculars. I could see a band of light without them. And when I saw the second red light, I kept telling Barney to stop. Stop the car, Barney, and look at it. And he kept saying, oh, why, it's nothing. It'll go away. And I kept saying, Barney, you've got to stop. Stop the car, Barney, and look at it. It's amazing. And he said, oh, he was going to humor me. So then he said, oh, all right, give me the binoculars. And he looked at it, and I kept saying, do you see it? Do you see it? And he said, it's just a plane or something. And I kept saying, okay, it's a plane. Did you ever see a plane with two red lights? I thought planes had one red and one green light. And he kept looking at it, and then he gave the binoculars back to me, and I'd watch it. And then he said he couldn't see very well. He opened the car door. No. First he came and put down the window in his car, and he tried to stick his head out and look up over the roof of the car at it. But the motor of the car was running, and he said, well, he got out. He opened the car door and stepped out. He put one foot on the highway and one on the inside of the car. And he was standing out with the car door open, and he was leaning against the body of the car. He kept looking at it, and then he didn't say anything. He just stepped outside, and he stepped outside, and he kept going away from the car, and I thought, well, now, this isn't a very bright place for us to have stopped the car because we're right on the main highway. We're not on the right side or the left side. We're right directly in the middle. And there should be traffic on the highway, so I thought, well, while he's getting out to get a good look at this, I'll watch if any cars in either direction, in case I have to get the car out of the middle of the street. So I'd look out the back window and out the front window, and it seems as though I sat there and waiting, and Barney didn't come back. And I was sitting there and waiting, and I'd look. It was dark there. There weren't any street lights or anything. I noticed when I look out, he was quite a distance from the car, and he was still going away from the car. So I leaned over the front seat and I was saying, Barney, come back here. Barney, you damn fool, get back here. Barney, come back. If that damn fool doesn't come back, I'm going after him. Barney, Barney, what's wrong with you? And I'm calling, Barney, Barney, get back here. What's wrong with you? I started to slide. I was going to get out of his side of the car because that door was opened all the way. I started to slide across the seat because I was going to go out and get him. Just as I started to slide and I got to the door, most of the way open, he came to the car. He was running like mad down the street. And when I heard him coming, I sat up. I was lucky I did. Afterwards, because he threw the binoculars in the car and they landed on the seat beside me. He was hysterical. He was, I don't know if he was laughing or crying, because he was saying that they were going to capture us. We had to get the hell out of there. They were going to capture us because the car motor was running. He put his car into first, and he stepped on the gas, and we started to take off very rapidly. He kept saying to me, look out, you can see them. They're right overhead. They're right directly over our car. And so I did want to see them again, and I was sort of afraid, but I wasn't that afraid. And so we were moving. We were going quite fast then, and so I wound down, turned down the window on my side of the car, and I tried to put the body out, and I tried to put my body out through the window and look at it. And I kept looking and looking, and I couldn't see them. I couldn't see the light. I couldn't even see the sky. I couldn't see anything. And so I told Barney, I don't think they're out there. I don't see anything. It's all black. I don't see them. So then I pulled my head in and wound the window back up. And I thought, well, maybe they're out the back, because I kept looking for these lights. And I looked out the back window. I didn't see anything. And then, all of a sudden, there was this beep, 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 beep. And Barney said, what's that? What's that? What's that noise? I said, I don't know. And I could think of is some kind of electrical signal, you know. Beep, 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 beep. I wondered, oh darn, why didn't I learn Morse code? Because maybe this is Morse code, and I don't know it. Then I thought maybe it's electrical. Maybe it's a shock. So I put my hand on the metal of the car, and I kept feeling and feeling, and I didn't feel a shock. No kind of electrical shock. But the whole car was vibrating. You know, little vibrating. And I thought, well, that's funny. There was no, well, I don't know. There was a beeping, and there wasn't any electrical shock. What happened next? We're riding along, and I kept waiting for Barney to tell me about what he saw on the highway. Doctor says, how long would you say he was away from you when he was on the highway? Actually, how long was it? Oh, it seemed like a long time. Well, how long was it? I don't know. I would say for some reason, I don't know why. I would say 4 or 5 minutes. 4 or 5 minutes? Yes. I don't remember looking at my watch, and it was dark anyways, and I heard the beeping sound. Did you see this object anymore? I kept trying to see it every once in a while. I would look out the window for it, but my mind's blank. Another pause. She is groping. But I can almost remember. Doctor says, yes, you can. She is obviously straining to remember. Right at this point, I can't get beyond that beeping, nor could Barney at this point. You can, it's all right now. You can get beyond it, says the doctor. Yes, go on, it's all right. All right, you needn't be too upset. Betty says, we're driving along. I don't know where we are. I don't even know how we got here. Barney and I, we were driving. I don't know how long. I don't know how long. And we haven't been even talking. I've just been sitting here feeling that something is going to happen, and I'm not really too afraid, except now I am. At this time, I didn't feel afraid. Doctor says, why are you crying if you're not afraid? I'm afraid now, but I wasn't. I wasn't afraid. I was afraid when I saw the men in the road. Men in the road? I've never been so afraid in my life. Tell me about the men in the road. It's all right now. She begins to say something, but she is sobbing too much to get it out. You're safe here. Tell me about the men in the road. We're driving along. We are on a tarred road, and all of a sudden, without any warning or rhyme or reason or anything, Barney made the brake squealed. He stopped so suddenly, and made this sharp left-hand turn off the highway, and we went out on this narrow road. I was wondering what he was doing to turn down here. He wasn't saying anything, and I wasn't either. So I figured, well, maybe we're lost. But so what? We'll come out somewhere. And we're going along, and there was a sharp curve. There were trees. There were a lot of tall trees on my side. I don't know about Barney's side of the road. But there was these men standing in the highway, and I wasn't too afraid when I saw them. They were standing there, and I thought, well, they weren't so awful. There was, I don't know. And they were just, I wasn't too afraid when I saw them, and they were just, I couldn't get a good look at them. But then I thought, well, they in a car? A car broken down? What are they doing there? And Barney, of course, had to stop. And then he stopped the car, and these men started to come to the car. They separated. They came in two groups, and when they started to do that, I got real scared, and the car motor died. The car stalled, and then they started to come towards us. And when they started to do that, I got real scared. The car motor died, the car stalled, and when they started to come up to us, Barney tried to start the car. And you know how a motor of the car will just turn over and it won't fire? He couldn't start the car. He couldn't start the car. He did what? He tried to start the car and it won't start, and then the men are coming towards us, and I thought, well, I can get away from them if I get the car door open. I can run to the woods and hide. And I'm thinking of that, and I just put my hand on the car door to open it, and the men come up, and they open it for me. And they opened the car door, and this man, two men behind us, and I didn't hear that, says the doctor. Two men at the car door, and there's 1, 2, 3 men, and there's 1, 2 more behind them, and one man puts his hand out. Go on. I don't know what happens. You can remember everything now, says the doctor. What do these men look like? Do you see their faces? No. How were they dressed? Alike, somehow or other. Do they have a uniform or ordinary clothes? More like a uniform. A uniform. Did it resemble any uniform you already know? I can't say. All right, your memory is very sharp, says the doctor. You needn't be worried. You remember everything now. Tell me what happened. What are you thinking now? I'm thinking I'm asleep. You're asleep in the car? I'm thinking I'm asleep. I'm asleep and I've got to wake up. I don't want to be asleep. I keep trying. I got to wake myself up. I try and then I go back again. I keep trying to wake up. Then I do. I open my eyes and I'm walking through the woods. And I just open my eyes and I shut them again. But even though I'm sleeping, I'm walking. And there's this man on the right side and a man on this side. And there's 2 men in front of me. And I look around and it's a path and there's trees. And I look at these men and I turn around. Barney's behind me. Barney's behind you, says the doctor. There's a couple of men behind me, and there's Barney. There's a man on each side of him, and my eyes are open, but Barney's still asleep. He's walking, and he's asleep. She is still sobbing, but she gets under control. And then I begin to get mad, and I say to myself, who the heck are these characters, and what do they think they're doing? And I turn around and I say, Barney, wake up, Barney. Why don't you wake up? And he doesn't pay any attention. He keeps walking and going a little bit further, and I turn around and I say his name again. Barney! Wake up, Barney! And he still doesn't pay any attention. And then the man walking beside me says, oh, is his name Barney? And that's where I looked at this man. And I figured it's none of my business, so I didn't speak to him. Then we keep walking, and I try to wake up Barney again. I keep saying, Barney, Barney, wake up! And he doesn't. So then the man asks again, is Barney his name? And I wouldn't answer him. So he says, don't be afraid. You don't have any reason to be afraid. We're not going to harm you, but we just want to do some tests. When the tests are over with, we'll take you and Barney back and put you in the car. You'll be on your way back home in no time. I mean, he was sort of reassuring in a way, but I can't say I trust what he said. And I wasn't sure what was going to happen. We kept walking, and Barney was still asleep. You mean he was walking in his sleep, says the doctor. Yes, like sleepwalking. Did these men speak good English, says the doctor. Only one spoke, the one who was on my left. Then he was more or less, he had an accent. He had a sort of foreign accent, but he was, very businesslike. So we kept walking, and we came to a clearing, and there was, I wish it were lighter so I could get a better picture of it. There was a ramp to a door. The object was on the ground. The object was on the ground, says the doctor. I think it was the same one I was watching in the sky, and there were trees and a path, and there was this clearing. And they're taking me up to the object. I do not want to go in. I do not want to. I don't know what's going to happen in there if I do. I don't want to go. Barney's no protection. He's sound asleep, and I don't want to go in. He's sound asleep. What's he doing? Walking along, or was somebody supporting him? Yes, there's a man on each side. One has each arm, and they're his eyes are shut, and he doesn't hear anything I say, but he's standing on his own 2 feet, but he's in a daze. And they're sort of directing him, helping him along, and he's quite a bit taller than the men. He's taller than the men, says the doctor. Yes, he's way above them. So when we get to the object, I don't want to go in. And so the man beside me says, go in. He's a little angry with me. He says, oh, go on. The longer you fool around out here, the longer it's going to take. You might as well go on and get it over with and get back to your car. We haven't got much time either. So he and one of the others each take my arm, and I get sort of a helpless feeling. There's not much I can do at this point, but to go on with them. I go up into the ramp, I go inside, and there's a corridor to the left. We go up to the corridor, and there's a room, and they stop to take me in the room. I'm standing in the doorway, and I turn around, and I'm waiting for them to bring Barney in. But they don't do this. They led Barney right past the door where I'm standing, so I said, what are you doing with Barney? Bring him in here where I am. And the man said, no, we only have equipment enough in one room to do one person at a time. And if we take you both to the same room, it will take too long. So Barney will be all right. They're going to take him into the next room. And then as soon as we get through testing both of you, then you will go back to your car. You do not have to be afraid. And so I watch them take Barney into the next room, and I go into this room. And some of the men come in the room with this man who speaks English. They stay for a minute. I don't know who they are. I guess maybe they're the crew, but they only stay for a minute. And the man who speaks English is there, and another man comes in. I haven't seen him before. I think he's a doctor, and they come in through the door. And in one corner there's a stool, is it white? I don't know if it's white or chrome, but there's a stool, and they put me on it. I sit on the stool, and I have a dress, my blue dress on, and they push up the sleeve of my dress, and they look at my arm. They both look at my arm, and they turn my arm over, and they look at it on there. And they rub. They have this machine. I don't know what it is. They bring the machine over, and I don't know what kind of machine. It's something like a microscope, only a microscope with a big lens. And I had an idea they were taking a picture of my skin, and they both looked through this machine, here and here. And then they were talking. I don't know what they were saying. I couldn't understand this part, what they were saying. And then they took something like a letter opener, or it wasn't, and it scraped my arm here. And there was like little, you know, how your skin gets dry and flaky sometimes, like little particles of skin. And they put something like a piece of cellophane or plastic or something like that. They scraped and they put it on the plastic. And then he, the man who spoke English, they both spoke English here, the man who brought me on this contraption, and the one who took this, he took this plastic and he rolled it up, and he put it in the top drawer, and then they put my head, there was like a dentist, not like a dentist, something like that, you know, the brace of a dentist chair. You have this thing that holds your head. I don't know, it seemed to pull out the back of the stool, somehow or another, and they put my head in that. So I'm sitting in the stool and there's a little bracket. My head is resting against this bracket, and the examiner opens my eyes and looks in them with a light. And he opens my mouth, and he looks in my throat and my teeth, and he looks in my ears, and he turns my head and he looks in this ear. And then he takes like a swab or a Q-tip, I guess it is, that they use on babies, and he cleans it out. He puts it in my left ear and he puts it on another piece of this material. And the leader takes it and rolls it up and puts it in the top drawer too. Oh, and then he feels my hair down on my back, of my neck and all. And they take a couple of strands of my hair and they pull it out. He gives this to the leader and he wraps all up and puts it in the top drawer. Then he takes something like scissors. I don't know what it is, and they cut a piece of it and he gives that to him. And then he feels my neck and he starts feeling behind my ears, under my chin, and down my neck and through my shoulders around my collarbone. And then they take off my shoes and they look at my feet. And they look at my hands. They look my hands all over. And he takes the light, so very bright, to my eyes, so my eyes aren't open. I'm still a little scared too. I'm not particularly interested in looking at them. And so I try to keep my eyes shut, but no, I do open, not all the time, just to give myself a little relief. When I'm not looking at them, I shut my eyes. And he takes something and he goes underneath my fingernail and then, I don't know, probably manicure scissors or something. He cuts off a piece of my fingernail. And they look my feet all over. I don't think they do anything to them. They just look at my feet and my toes and all. And then the examiner says he wants to do some test. He wants to check my nervous system. And I am thinking, I don't know how our nervous systems are, but I hope we never have nerve enough to go around kidnapping people right off the highways, as he has done. And he tells me to take off my dress. He tells me to take off my dress. And then before I even have a chance, hardly to stand up to do it, the examiner, my dress, has a zipper down the back. Yes, it has a zipper down the back. And the examiner unzips it, and so I slip my dress off. And I don't have my dress or shoes on. And there next to the stool, and sort of in the middle of the room, there's a table, some kind of table. It's not very high up. I'd say the height of the desk. So I lie down on the table on my back, and he brings over this, how can I describe it? They're like needles, a whole cluster of needles. And each needle has a wire going from it. I think it's something like a TV screen, you know? When the picture isn't on, you get all the kinds of lines. Something like that. And so he puts me down on the table and they bring the needles over. And they don't stick them in me. No, not really like sticking a needle into a person, but they touch me with the needles. It doesn't hurt. Except, where was it? Someplace. He touches and I feel the needle touching, that's all. It doesn't hurt at all. But then he does it all back up, all in my back of my ears. And in here somehow, and up here, she points different parts of her head. Up in all different spots of my head, and then he probes more of my neck, here and through here. She indicates her arms. And then down here, I don't know. Then he puts it on my knee. When he did, my leg jumped. And then on my foot, too. He did it around my ankle somehow or other. And they have me roll over on my stomach, and they touch it all along my back. They touch with these needles somehow or another. I don't know what they're doing, but they seem to be happy about whatever they're doing. So then they roll me over on my back, and the examiner has a long needle in his hands. And I see the needle, and it's bigger than any needle I've ever seen. And I ask him, "What are you going to do with it?" "It won't hurt me." And I ask him, "What?" And he says he just wants to put it in my navel. It's just a simple test. And I tell him, "No, it will hurt. Don't do it. Don't do it." And I'm crying, and I'm telling him, it's hurting, take it out, take it out." And the leader comes over, and he puts his hand, rubs his hand in front of my eyes, and he says it will be all right. I won't feel it. And all the pain goes away. The pain goes away, but I'm still sore from where they put that needle. I don't know why they put that needle into my navel, because I told them they shouldn't do it. "Did they make any sexual advances to you?" says the doctor. "No." "They didn't?" "No." I asked the leader, I said, why did they put that needle in my navel?" And he said it was a pregnancy test. I said, "I don't know what they expected, but that was no pregnancy test here." And he didn't say any more. "All right, we'll stop here for now. You'll be relieved, relaxed, and at ease," says the doctor. "Perfectly at ease, comfortable, and relaxed. When I wake you up, you will not remember anything that has transpired here. You will not remember anything that has transpired here until I tell you to recall it." Well, that's it right there. We're going to wrap it up right there. There are more transcripts that I can do episodes on. So let me know if that's something that you guys want to hear, if that's something that interests you. And we'll delve more into it, because there's some definitely weirder stuff in the transcripts. Different, and we'll hear from Barney too, because he went to the same doctor to be put under, and he recalls some different stuff that happened to him. It gets a little more into physical evidence and stuff too, but we'll leave it at that for right now. Let me know if you guys want to hear more of the Betty and Barney Hill abduction, and we can delve more into it. Hit me up in the comments. Please like and subscribe. If you're hearing on audio only through Anchor or Breaker or Google Podcast, our first channel got shut down on YouTube, so you can check us out. It's literally Conspiracy Corner Podcast, with an exclamation mark. The profile picture, it's a samurai bunny. So find us on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. We're basically starting from scratch. We had up to 200 subscribers, and now we're at 8. So please like and share. Let us know. Let you all's people know that we're here. You all have a good day.
We are, as a people,